And we're back with AP as we see it in our very special guest, Yogi Roth, the Big Ten Network analyst extraordinaire. We'd like to welcome you to AP as we see it, Yogi.
You know what? I love seeing you. I'll tell you what, we go back so many years, whether it's with your nephew in Manhattan Beach or time that we spent together. I still remember when we went to breakfast in Hermosa Beach a couple years ago.
I remember that.
And seeing you at these events, I see a familiar face. So it's always nice, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Hey, Yogi, first year covering the Big Ten. How was that experience for you?
It was incredible. I think much like the previous, I think it was 17 or 18 year for me calling games, it's always about the people. And the Big Ten people have been phenomenal from the day I got there, and we were at Media Days in Indianapolis, to here we sit today in advance of the Cotton Bowl. The people are what make it. So I've adored that. I think when it comes to the football, I think it's been so refreshing to a certain degree to see new places. When the last time I was in Lincoln, Nebraska, I was coaching at USC in 06 or 07 or something like that.
Right.
And then I called a bunch of games in Lincoln with Matt Rule, or going to places that I'd never been before, like never been to Maryland, never been to that campus,
Yes.
never been to Indiana's campus since I was like 14 years old. So like little things like that for somebody who grew up in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
It was really a special experience. And from a football standpoint, it was different. Quarterback play wasn't, I think, as premium as it's been on the West Coast at times. I think also the way teams lean on you because they're so talented and so deep, like a Penn State and Oregon, Ohio State. That was just different. Like, I can't tell you, AP, I probably called 7 games. At the end of the first quarter, each team had 1 possession. That never happened out west.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Like, it was 3 possessions by the end of the first quarter. So it was just a little different style of play, but the fans were great. My colleagues, Rhett Lewis and Guy Haberman, were just phenomenal, and it's a place that I hope to continue to work at for a long time.
Oh, yeah, people love you. I know that. They always receive compliments about your analysis and things. But this Ohio State team, they seem to have the best roster in America. I mean, I'm looking at it offensively for sure.
Yeah.
You know, the 2 wide receivers, they have a third one as well, the 2 running backs, the quarterback, Will Howard, and Chip Kelly as a play caller when he wants to exercise those rights.
That's right. Well, think about even the offensive line. I think we've started 8 different offensive linemen. I'm a huge fan of this team. When I went around in training camp, the Big Ten sent me around. When I was watching them practice, I said, God, it's the first team I've ever seen that looks like the teams back in the day under Pete Carroll at USC, where all 22 players, you saw them finding a way to training camp, and you saw probably half of them as premium NFL draft picks. And I think when I look at them now, I am always reminded of a study that you've heard this before, many head coaches in college do, where they have their staffs rank their top 22 players.
Yes.
And the argument is like, well, if they're in the top 22, we got to find a way to get them on the field, right? It might be their 5th receiver, but if he's in that top 22, you got to find a way to play him. When I look at Penn State's top 22, I see first-round picks all over the place. There's 2nd-round picks all over the place, like true game changers, erasers in the back end, dominant players up front. You reference the skill, they've always had it. And then you add in, a lot of them came back, right? There's 11 guys that thought they were going to be in the NFL last year that said, no, let's run it back one more time. And Ohio State, like the Georgias and Alabamas, rarely get guys for a 4th year.
Rare.
It's 3 and out, and I just feel like covering them all season, and really Rose Bowl here, being around them yesterday, you feel a maturity that is like, I don't want to say professional, it's different. It's like they're elder statesmen, right? They're a selfless group. I mean, look at both running backs. You reference Quinshon Junkins and Travion Henderson. What's 925 and 924 yards on the season. Nobody's complaining. They're celebrating one another. Like, they really have this incredible culture that's overused, but God, it's a selfless one, man. Like, you don't see that often in a sport that is often about me, get paid, NIL, whatever.
Yes.
Ryan Day, he takes a lot of criticism. I think he also needs his flowers.
Oh, I think he's a very good coach. I mean, I think in that Michigan series, particularly, they coach tight.
They play tight.
And they play tight.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think they would say that too. I think that, and I've gotten a lot of pushback from people in Columbus on this opinion, because I get it. You go in that facility, you've been there, I've been there. There's clocks all over the facility. It's the countdown to the game.
Yes.
My formative years in coaching were in my early 20s. And under Pete Carroll, who I think is an all-timer, interviewing for the Bears in a matter of hours, by the way. Every day meant the same as the next day.
Right.
Every game meant the same as the next game.
Yeah.
And I think at Ohio State, they talk about the game every single day of the year. I think it's too much. Now, old school Ohio State players have pushed back on me a lot on that, on the radio or wherever, and I get it. But we're in a different era where
I think so.
you're not only feeling it on the clock, you're feeling it in your pocket.
Yes.
You're feeling it on social. You're feeling it every day. And I think that performance anxiety, is natural. It's good, but it's also a thing.
Yeah.
And I think watching that team, they played the tightest I've ever seen them play. And I would say, throughout the season, I never saw this team look the way they've looked in their last 2 outings. So I think from everything I've been told, post-Michigan, players-only meeting, aired all the grievances, and as Will Howard and Emeka Buka told me prior to the Rose Bowl, they said we walked out of that meeting lighter. And they play light. They play with this childlike joy. It reminds me of when the best teams find performance, they find a way to play free. And they're finally doing that the last 2 games, which is scary for their opponents.
Oh, yeah, fast and loose. They look
There you go.
comfortable. And I think I say that as a positive.
Yeah.
Not, taking things for granted, but being so happy to be enjoying their skills, fully. And Chip Kelly, like I said, that Michigan game, I didn't quite understand, but I think, like you said, I think what contributed to that is that every day thinking about that game, and then they coached tight, consequently played tight. But maybe they'll learn a lesson. Maybe Ryan Day learned a lesson.
I think
from that.
so. I think, look, sport is the ultimate teacher, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're a youth coach like I am, or whether we're broadcasters like we both are, or you're Ryan Day, or I was just talking to Coach Carroll about it. Like, he's 73. He's still learning every day. He thinks he's the best version of himself now.
No, right.
So yeah, I think they will, and I'll be so curious to see how they navigate that conversation next year, because I think
Right.
there were a lot of lessons learned, because you have one of the most mature teams, one of the most talented teams in recent history. You could argue in the modern era of college football, and they didn't navigate that well.
No,
So
they
next
did not.
year,
Yeah.
you're not going to have that mature team.
No.
How are they going to navigate? How are you going to guide them in that regard against an even better Michigan team next year?
Yeah.
And I think it's hard if you're trying to win for history. I've always felt this of like the job of an athlete in college football, in the most majestic and passion-filled and pageantry-filled sport, is not to carry the history of the Iron Bowl with you when you play in that game,
No.
or of the game, or of Stanford Cal. You name a rivalry. Your job isn't to carry that. That's what we do. That's what
Right,
the fans
right,
do. That's
the
what we
fans
love
do,
about
yes.
it. Your job is to play the next snap.
That's it.
And that is a discipline that is not easy to curate, but the best teams can.
The best teams can. Yeah, you can promote, this is your team, this is your year, and
That's right.
play in the moment.
And this is your snap.
What might be an edge for Ohio State in this game against Texas? Texas leads the series 2-1. They haven't played very often,
Yeah.
these two blue bloods. And, of course, Texas is back in their home state, Cotton Bowl. These fans have to be so excited for Texas. But Ohio State travels well, as we know.
Yeah, well, I think you even look at the weather. I looked out of my window as you did this morning, and there's snow on the ground, and flights are canceled, and who knows how many people from Columbus will end up showing up. And they'll do everything
Yeah.
they can to get here safely. 200 miles away is Austin, Texas.
Right.
And in this great state of Texas, of course, they love their Longhorns. So it'll feel like a home game. I think we've all been to enough bowl games to know what it's
Yes.
like when Georgia plays in Atlanta, et cetera. You can kind of feel that crowd. You'll feel that, I
Yeah.
think, tomorrow night. I think the edge for Ohio State is kind of what we've referenced is an experience factor.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're so confident with an edge, and they've played at such a consistent level. Texas hasn't. Texas hasn't been that consistent, especially in the playoff. We saw them
Right.
blow out Clemson. We saw them jump on ASU via special teams, but they couldn't do much until late when they had to. I think that the pressure is not necessarily on Ohio State as much as we've thought in recent past.
Yeah.
I think for them, if I was going to go core X's and O's, I think Caleb Downs is the X factor. If I was calling this game, I'd be circling him. He's going to play that middle safety. They'll play with 3 safeties. Sometimes he'll drop into the box. Sometimes he'll play at linebacker. Sometimes he'll play half the field. I mean, he really will make life hard. And I know Steve Sarkisian well. I learned from him. He's my formative football mind. He's going to have an answer. That is where I want to. If I was calling this game, it would be all about split screen. Steve Sarkisian, Caleb Downs. How are they navigating that?
The whole thing, yeah. We just have one more minute in this segment. What would you like to say about this Texas team? Quinn Ewers, their quarterback.
I love Quinn. Known him since the Elite 11. Offered by Ryan Day in 8th grade. What a unique storyline. Texas
Yes.
kid who left due to me, like, the rules in Texas were not great for high school athletes when he was in high school. So he dipped early, or he went training camp to Ohio State.
Right.
He spent a semester there and then came on back home. He's been in the spotlight. He's never asked to be in the spotlight. He just loves to play and perform in the craft. I love being around him last year at the Sugar Bowl and now here this week. He's got another confidence where he's seen so many things.
Yes, yes.
He's dealt with so much scrutiny. He's a kid who grew up a stone's throw away from the stadium where he plays in Austin.
Right.
And he's the purest passer remaining in the playoff. They're going to me, if I'm Sark, I'm spreading it out. I'm going a little bit of tempo. I'm not letting Jack Sawyer and company get into the backfield. He will have an answer. He'll look at the biggest strength of Ohio State and say, okay, this is how we take it away. Don't let them get that opportunity. And Quinn can deal. He can spin it. So that will be the game, in my opinion, for Texas on offense.
And we're going to be right back after these messages with AP as we see our special guest, Yogi Roth, Big Ten Network analyst extraordinaire.